Most people think success starts with strategy, resources, or opportunity, but that's not where it truly begins. It begins long before the results, long before the actions, long before anyone else can see it. It begins with a decision about who you are. Because the truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of who you believe you are. And until that identity changes, nothing else truly sticks. Most people believe success is something you chase, something outside of you, something waiting at the end of hard work, luck, or perfect timing. But that belief alone is why so many people stay stuck. Success is not an event that happens to you. It is an expression of who you are being every single day. Long before results show up on the outside, a decision is made on the inside. That decision shapes how you think, how you respond to pressure, how you show up when no one is watching. The world doesn't reward what you want, it responds to who you are. Take a look at your life right now and you'll see proof of this everywhere. Your income, your relationships, your health, your confidence, all of it is aligned with the identity you've been living from. Not the identity you talk about, but the one you consistently act from. If you identify as someone who struggles, you'll find struggle even in opportunity. If you identify as someone who grows, learns, and adapts, you'll turn obstacles into fuel. Same environment, different identity, completely different results. This is why information alone never changes people. You can read the books, watch the videos, attend the seminars, but if you don't shift who you believe you are, nothing lasts. Behavior always follows identity. You don't have to force yourself to act in alignment with who you believe you are, you do it automatically. That's why some people don't need motivation to work out, lead, or follow through. It's not willpower, it's identity. They simply see themselves as that kind of person. Here's the key most people miss. Identity is not something you find, it's something you decide. You weren't born with limits, you practiced them. You weren't born doubting yourself, you learned it. And anything you learn can be unlearned the moment you decide something different. The problem is most people keep waiting for evidence before they change who they are, but the evidence only shows up after the decision is made. The decision comes first, the proof comes later. When you decide who you are, your standards rise automatically. You stop tolerating what you once accepted. You stop negotiating with excuses that used to feel reasonable. You stop asking how long it will take and start asking what's required. That shift changes everything. Because success is not built on intensity, it's built on consistency, and consistency only exists when it's rooted in identity. The moment you stop seeing yourself as someone trying to succeed and start seeing yourself as someone who does what it takes, your actions change without force. You move differently, you speak differently, you expect more from yourself. Life begins to respond not to your wishes, but to your certainty. And certainty is born the instant you decide who you are going to be starting now. Every lasting change in life begins with a decision, not a desire. Desire is easy. Everyone wants more confidence, more success, more freedom, but wanting has never transformed a life. What changes everything is the moment you decide who you are going to be, regardless of circumstances, regardless of fear, regardless of past experiences. That decision becomes the foundation on which every action, habit, and result is built. Most people focus on outcomes first. They ask what they want, how fast they can get it, and what strategy will take them there. But outcomes are temporary if the identity underneath them is weak. You can force a result through massive effort. But if you don't change who you believe you are, you'll eventually return to old patterns. That's why people lose success as fast as they gain it. The external change happened, but the internal decision never did. Real transformation happens when you shift from chasing results to embodying a new identity. When you decide this is who I am now, your brain starts filtering the world differently. You notice opportunities you used to ignore. You respond to challenges with strength instead of avoidance. You take action not because you're motivated, but because it's aligned with who you are. This is why identity-based change is permanent. It doesn't rely on emotion, it's rooted in commitment. Think about the difference between someone who says they want to be confident and someone who decides they are a confident person. One hesitates, the other acts. One waits for certainty, the other creates it. The decision creates momentum. It tells your nervous system that this is no longer a debate. And when there is no debate, energy is no longer wasted on hesitation or self-doubt. The reason most people stay stuck is not lack of ability, it's lack of decision. They keep one foot in the past and one foot in the future. They say they want change, but they never fully decide who they must become to create it. And without that decision, every challenge becomes an excuse to retreat instead of a reason to rise. When you decide who you are, your standards elevate instantly. You stop asking what's easy and start asking what's right. You stop doing what feels comfortable and start doing what's aligned. Discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like self-respect. That's the power of identity-based decision-making. It removes friction and replaces it with clarity. The most powerful moment in any human life is the moment of decision. Not when everything is figured out, not when confidence is perfect, not when fear disappears. Fear may still be there, but it no longer controls you. Because once you decide who you are, your actions fall into place, your habits reorganize, and your life begins to reflect the choice you made about yourself. Again and again through the way you show up every single day, every standard you live by is rooted in a story you tell yourself about who you are. That story may have been shaped by past failures, criticism, environment, or experiences you didn't choose. But once it becomes your identity, it quietly dictates what you expect from life and what you tolerate from yourself. Standards are not rules you follow. They are reflections of belief. And belief is born from identity. Look closely at any area of life where someone is thriving and you'll find elevated standards beneath the surface. Not because they are trying harder, but because they expect more from themselves. They don't accept excuses that others justify. They don't negotiate with habits that weaken them. They don't tolerate behaviors that contradict who they believe they are. Their standards are not forced. They are automatic because they come from a clear sense of identity. Most people don't consciously choose their standards. They inherit them. They absorb them from family, culture, past failures, and the opinions of others. Over time, those standards feel normal, even when they're limiting. You start to believe that inconsistency is just how you are, that settling is realistic, that stress and overwhelm are part of your personality. But these are not traits. They are practiced identities reinforced by repetition. The moment your identity shifts, your standards must rise to match it. If you see yourself as someone who respects their potential, you won't tolerate self-sabotage. If you see yourself as someone committed to growth, you won't allow comfort to dominate your decisions. You don't need to be perfect, but you become unwilling to stay the same. That unwillingness is what creates momentum, because standards act like an internal compass, constantly pulling you toward alignment. This is why willpower eventually fails. Willpower tries to fight identity instead of redefining it. Why? Oh, you try to act disciplined while still seeing yourself as undisciplined. You try to be confident while still identifying as someone who doubts themselves. That internal conflict drains energy and leads to inconsistency. But when identity changes, behavior follows without resistance. You don't have to push yourself to meet higher standards. You live into them naturally. Raising standards doesn't mean being harsh with yourself. It means being honest. It means recognizing that the life you want requires a different version of you, and that version lives by different rules. Rules about what you accept, what you allow, and what you walk away from. Every time you honor those rules, your identity strengthens. Every time you break them, it weakens. The story you tell yourself about who you are is being reinforced every day by the standards you keep. Change the story and your standards rise. Raise your standards and your life begins to change in ways effort alone could never achieve. Because when identity and standards align, progress stops being a struggle and starts becoming a reflection of who you believe yourself to be at the deepest level. Everything you do on a daily basis is driven by who you believe you are. Actions don't appear randomly. They are expressions of identity. If you see yourself as someone who follows through, you follow through. If you see yourself as someone who procrastinates, you find reasons to delay. Behavior is simply identity in motion, and results are the natural outcome of that movement repeated over time. This is why people can know exactly what to do and still not do it. The gap is not intelligence or resources, it's identity. You can have the perfect plan, the right strategy, and all the tools in the world. But if those actions conflict with who you believe you are, consistency will always break down. You'll start strong, hesitate under sure, and eventually return to familiar patterns. Not because you're weak, but because identity always wins. Look at someone who consistently produces results, and you'll notice something powerful. They don't rely on mood. They don't wait to feel inspired. They act from identity. When action is aligned with identity, it feels natural, even when it's hard. There's no internal debate, no constant negotiation. The action simply makes sense because it matches who they see themselves to be. Results are not created in moments of intensity. They are created through repeated behaviors over time. And repeated behaviors only stick when they are supported by identity. This is why temporary motivation fades. Motivation is emotional, identity is structural. Motivation pushes you for a moment, identity pulls you for a lifetime. When your actions are supported by identity, effort decreases and consistency increases. Most people try to change their results by forcing new behaviors without redefining who they are. They try to work harder, wake up earlier, stay disciplined, but underneath it all, they still identify as someone who struggles, quits, or gets overwhelmed. That creates resistance. Every action feels heavy. Every setback feels personal. Eventually, the old identity pulls them back into old results. The shift happens when you stop asking how to change your behavior and start deciding who you are. When you decide you are someone who does what they commit to, your behavior adjusts. When you decide you are someone who grows through challenge, obstacles stop feeling like threats. When identity changes, behavior reorganizes automatically, and results begin to compound. This is where real confidence comes from. Not from positive thinking, but from alignment. When who you believe you are matches how you act, self-trust is built. And self-trust fuels momentum. Momentum fuels results reinforce identity. It becomes a powerful upward cycle. You don't get the results you want, you get the results that match your identity. Change the identity and behavior follows. Change the behavior consistently and results become inevitable. Not because you force them, but because they are the natural expression of who you have decided to be in the way you show up every single day without exception. There is a moment in every transformation when everything shifts, not because the world changed, but because a decision was made. A decision so clear, so firm that life has no choice but to respond to it. That decision is who you will be, not who you hope to be, not who you might become one day, but who you choose to embody starting now. The instant that choice is made, something powerful happens beneath the surface. When you decide who you are, your mind begins to reorganize around that identity. Your focus sharpens. Your tolerance for distraction drops. Opportunities that once passed unnoticed suddenly stand out. Challenges that once felt overwhelming start to look like invitations to grow. Nothing outside has changed yet, but everything inside has. And that internal shift changes how you engage with the world. Most people underestimate the power of decision because they confuse it with preference. A preference is negotiable. A decision is final. When identity is undecided, behavior wavers. When identity is decided, behavior aligns. That's why people who truly decide move with a different energy. They don't explain themselves. They don't wait for validation. They don't constantly look back. Their certainty creates momentum, and momentum attracts results. The world is designed to test identity. The moment you decide who you are, resistance appears. Old habits pull. Old voices resurface. External circumstances challenge your commitment. This is not a sign you made the wrong decision. It's proof that the decision matters. Identity is strengthened through action under pressure. Every time you act in alignment with who you decided to be, that identity becomes more real, more embodied, more unshakable. Life begins to reorganize because your standards change. You start saying no to what no longer fits. You stop engaging in patterns that contradict your future. You invest time, energy, and focus differently. People respond differently to you, not because you demand it, but because your presence has changed. Certainty communicates itself without words. This is why lasting success always looks intentional from the outside. It's not luck, it's alignment. When who you are, what you do, and what you expect are in sync, progress accelerates. You don't waste energy fighting yourself. You move forward with clarity, even when the path is uncomfortable. The most powerful part is this. You don't need permission, confidence, or perfect conditions to decide who you are. You only need willingness. Willingness to let go of old identities that no longer serve you. Willingness to step into discomfort. Willingness to act before you feel ready. That willingness activates the decision, and the decision reshapes your life. The moment you decide who you will be, your future begins to rearrange itself around that choice. Not slowly, not randomly, but deliberately. through the actions you take, the standards you uphold, and the consistency you embody as you live into the identity you have claimed as your own starting now.